Good afternoon, all, or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to today's webinar, Synchro 11 Features. My name is Brooke McGee, and I am a part of the marketing team here at Trafficware. I'll be moderating today's webinar. That means I will help our presenter with any questions you may have, and I will help keep track of our time. Today we have Sharman Chaudhary, Product Specialist for the Synchro Suite, leading our webinar. Sharman will provide a demonstration of the new features in Synchro 11. Should you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A feature. You can find the Q&A feature in the control bar at the bottom of your screen. Simply click Q&A. A window will open, and you can type your question in there. Your question will be answered out loud at the conclusion of our presentation today. This webinar is being recorded, and we will send a follow-up email with a link to the recording and additional resources. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sharman and let her take it from here. Sharman?
Thank you, Brooke, and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Synchro 11 new feature webinar. As Brooke already mentioned, that my name is Sharman Chaudhary, and I'll be presenting today's webinar for you. So let's get started. As you all know, that today's presentation is mainly focused on Synchro 11 new feature. But before going to the main topic, I would like to give you a little background about Synchro Studio. Because in this webinar, maybe there are people who are listening about Synchro for the first time and they are thinking about using it. So let's have a little bit background about Synchro Studio. Then we will jump in and start talking about Synchro 11, okay? So what is Synchro Studio? Synchro Studio is a robust, easy to use traffic signal analysis software. So here I mentioned traffic signal analysis software because this is what Synchro is originally made for. However, in today's date, we do support signalized intersection, unsignalized intersection, and roundabout. So unsignalized intersection includes the always stop and two-way stop control intersection. Synchro allows you to analyze, optimize, design, model, simulate, and animate both signalized and unsignalized intersection. Okay? Starting from version 9, Synchro also allows you to compute the trip distribution and trip assignment for TIA analysis, which is essentially the traffic impact analysis. When we talk about Synchro, this is just a product of a whole suite of products, which we called Synchro Studio, which obviously includes Synchro because this is our flagship product. Synchro allows you to design, model, and optimize traffic signal infrastructure. We also have a micro simulation tool, which called SimTraffic. It allows you to simulate real-world vehicular and pedestrian traffic scenarios. So when you purchase Synchro, you are always getting SimTraffic and vice versa. So these two products always, we actually give you this product as a couple, okay? Besides these two products of Synchro Studio, we have another add-on, which is called 3D Viewer. This is a 3D viewing tool. The name itself sounds like that, right? So what it does is, it actually converts the two-dimensional model from SimTraffic and create a three-dimensional animation for you, which is a great source for presentation, right? So besides these three products under Synchro Studio, we have two supplemental modules. One is Warrant and another is TripGen. Both the names are quite self-explanatory. You could buy those products as a standalone product, or you could buy them as an add-on of Synchro Studio. Okay? However you prefer to purchase it. The warrants allows you to evaluate a network of intersection according to MUTCD guidelines for signalization. However, the latest warrants also supports always stop control intersection. TripGen, on the other hand, allows you to calculate the expected number of trips based on data from the IT trip generation manual, and the latest trip gen supports the latest manual of IT trip generation, which is the manual version 10. Synchro Studio have been in the industry for more than 20 years, which combines the deterministic modeling tool, which is Synchro, with the microscopic simulation tool, which is SimTraffic, what I just described in my previous slide, right? Synchro is a very easy to use software and highly adaptable with many different scenarios. Synchro supports multiple similar scenarios in a single Synchro file. It also supports multiple analysis methods, starting from HCM 6th edition, HCM 2010, HCM 2000, Synchro's own proprietary percentile delay method, ICU, which is intersection capacity utilization. It also gives you the analysis of SimTraffic, which is the simulation, right? Now let's start talking about Synchro 11, which is actually the main topic for today. Synchro 11 has released on December 9, 2019. It released with new level of convenience and improved productivity. Version 11 introduces global Bing map as default Synchro background and much anticipated scenario manager. Now in version 11, Bing maps is the default Synchro background, which increases the efficiency of coding a Synchro network without putting extra effort into importing the background image. It also assures that the Synchro network is scaled properly and follows the accurate latitude and longitude. The scenario manager, on the other hand, combines similar multiple scenarios into a single file formatting, which simplifies the electronic file management while also reduces the development time and maintenance. A significant benefit of the scenario manager is the mitigation of coding error, which is very possible while managing multiple files with similar data, right? Which we do, I think, in our everyday life as a traffic engineer or planner. Also, it allows you to quick switch between scenarios, allowing for easier analysis of results with different volume and or timing. Okay. Let's first talk about the Bing map, then I will talk about the scenario manager. Okay, so as I mentioned in my earlier slide that with Synchro 11, when you open up Synchro 11, you will see the nice Bing background instead of the green solid background you used to see in the previous version of Synchro. So when you open it up, it will open up a live Bing map as a background. And it will open up a search bar automatically. What you need to do is you just need to type in the location where you want to have your network. After you type in, either you hit enter from the keyboard or click the search button from here and it will take you to the location where you want to have your network. After you reach to your location, just start drawing your network. I would always suggest you to first draw a single node or intersection and then anchor that intersection with the background, because Synchro will not automatically anchor that for you, and that's a purposeful options or feature so that you have the flexibility to move the network up, down, or right or left, okay? And then you'll see there is an option called anchor. You just need to hit that button and this will change in color to green and blue, and this will make sure that your network is anchored properly with the Bing background, okay? To actually introduce all the functionality, we introduce a button called Bing. You can see on the left side of the Synchro UI, okay? So, okay, when I explain it like one by one step, sometimes it's difficult to understand what I wanted to meant. So let's actually open up Synchro and let me walk you through the process of how you can start with the Bing map, okay? So let me open a new file with Synchro 11. So as I mentioned, when you open Synchro 11, you will see the nice Bing background instead of the green solid background of Synchro, okay? And a search bar automatically opened for me. So what I just need to do is I just need to type in the location where I want to have my network, okay? So let's type in something. Let's type in 22 Gillingham Glen. You can be as precise as possible if you have like precise address, but you can also search for the city or for the state, however you want to prefer. But I would like to like be more precise so that it actually takes me to the exact location where I want to be. So this time I click the search button, but you could also click enter from your keyboard. It will do the same work. So let's assume that I want to actually draw this three intersection, or like my actually network area or model area is this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start drawing my first intersection. You could draw multiple, but I'll start with the first one. So I already create a node, right? So although I didn't put any extra information like length settings or volume settings, but like I have a node at least to start with. On top of that, I will actually build my network or build my intersection. So now if you use the panning tool, you click this, or you actually click the wheel of the mouse, it will do the same thing. So now I'll start panning. Right? You see, you can actually pan the network wherever you want to. This is not anchored yet with the map, right? And this is again, I mentioned that this is an intentional feature so that you have the flexibility to adjust or readjust. So, okay, so after this all adjustment, readjustment, I fix that, okay, I want to have my intersection exactly at this position. After I confirmed, I'm going to go there and come here. You see, it tells me click to anchor. So when I click it, it changes its color to green and blue, meaning that your network is anchored properly. Now, if I use the panning tool, see, my network is exactly anchored, right? Like now I can actually draw the other intersections like this, and then I can actually draw the other information or put the other information on top of my three intersection, right? So that's the idea. Now, at some point, if you feel, oh, I need a little bit readjustment, you can go ahead, click this, uncheck. Now it's black and white. Now you can again move it. After you readjust it, just click it. Now it's fixed. So that's pretty simple, very easy to follow steps, right? Now, I know you will have so many questions about the previous versions. Like you have a lot of previous version files. You want to work on those files in 11, and that's completely fair, right? So if you remember in Synchro 9 and Synchro 10, we had an option called Bing region where you actually can download the Bing section or Bing region, and you can draw your network on top of that, and you needed to select a reference point. So if you already did so with Synchro 9 and Synchro 10 and you had a valid reference point and you open up in Synchro 11, it will exactly open up on the location where you actually set your reference point. You don't need to do any extra work on that triggers. However, one group of user can tell me, hey, I never used that previously. How can I start with Synchro 11, right? No problem. When you open up in Synchro 11, it will actually, the network will open up in a kind of random places. So what you need to do is you just need to follow what I just did. Like you just need to type in the location where your network is and then follow the same process. However, let me show you how can you actually do it very easily. So for example, I have two files from Synchro 10. One is where I actually use that Bing region functionality and I have a valid reference point. In the same network I had in Synchro 10 where I didn't use any reference point. That means like I didn't use any background region and itself. So I'll open up two same network. One is with reference point, one is without reference point, and show you how can you actually work with Synchro 11 very easily. So let me actually open up from here. So I know maybe here I have the files. So you see, okay, let me actually first open up the network with the reference point. So this is my network where I had used the Bing region in my Synchro 10 file and use a reference point. Now I will open that 10 file in 11. So when I open it, you see, I didn't need to do anything. That was a 10 file. I just opened up in 11 because I had a valid reference point. It actually opened up in the exact location. And if you hit Bing map, you will see it's a green and blue because I had a valid reference point. Network is anchored properly with my Bing background. Okay, no extra work is needed. However, the other scenario, if I didn't have a reference point, so let me open up that as well. Without reference point, open it up. As I mentioned, that it will actually open up in some like random places, but now I need to actually take it to the correct location. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna type in the location here, right? So I think it was somewhere in East Front Street, Kansas City. I think I type it right, but let's see. See, it takes me very close to my network. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just drag it and I'll say, okay, this is pretty good match. And I decide on, okay, I wanna go with that. I'm gonna just hit it. See, I'm good to go. Now my network is properly anchored and it's properly on the location and I can just work with that. So it's pretty simple, right? You just need to follow 1 or 2 steps and that's it. You are good to go. I think that's it for Bing Map. And also, like you see under the mapping settings, there is a button. This is a toggle on and off button for Bing Map. So when it's like blue and that globe is blue and green, that means like your Bing background is active. But if you want to actually turn it off, you can just click it and it will turn the Bing Map off. In case you just don't want to use that, or you just like after you anchor at some point, maybe you just want to turn it off, you can use that functionality. Okay. Now I think, yeah, I think I covered everything on Bing Map. Let's go to the next topic. This is Scenario Manager. Okay. So Scenario Manager has multiple functionality. And to introduce Scenario Manager, we actually introduce a button here called Scenario Manager. But let's say what Scenario Manager allow you to do. Okay. So Scenario Manager actually saves multiple similar scenarios to a single Synchro file. So with Scenario Manager, you can save multiple similar scenarios in a single Synchro file, which allows you to reduce the number of Synchro files needed for same network, right? Like AM peak, PM peak, midday, you have the same network. In previous version of Synchro, you need to have completely separate files. But with this version, you can have the same file with same network, but different timing and volume. So you can change the timing plan for each scenario separately, right? Also, Scenario Manager allows you to have different volumes for each scenario. Okay, so you can have completely different timing, completely different volume. One good thing is that the geometry is sync across all these scenarios. Meaning, if you change the geometry in one place, Synchro will automatically apply that new geometry to the other scenario. Okay. So that's all you can do using Scenario Manager. And also in the user interface, as I mentioned, that it introduced a button called Scenario Manager to actually access all the functionality related to scenarios. Also on the top middle, you'll see there is a like scenario switcher, so that it will actually show you in which scenario you are right now, and you can actually switch between scenarios using this. I'll actually show you when I open Synchro for sure. Okay. So as I mentioned, that Scenario Manager button will actually open up the functionality. That means if you click the Scenario Manager button, it will open up the Scenario Manager window for you, which looks like this. Okay. Now, what is in this Scenario Manager window? So the first few options here, like obviously when it's across, you can close the Scenario Manager window. This button means that you can expand all the scenario together. This is, you can collapse all the scenarios together. Okay, so like for example, if you want to see all the description of all the scenarios, just click that button, it will automatically open. Right now it's like I actually opened the expanded one, that's why you are seeing the scenario name as well as the scenario description. However, if I click this, it will actually show you only the scenario name. Okay, it will not show you the description and all. So like two functionality, whatever you choose, you can, right? These two buttons is actually for the individual scenario, right? So it might happen that you want to actually see the description of AM peak, but you don't want to see the description of off peak and PM peak. With this button, you cannot do that, right? This is for all, this is for all, but you can do it individually. So let's say this is what you want to see the explanation of, and you don't want to see the explanation of off peak and PM peak. You can just click that, it will collapse these two. Click this, it will collapse this, click this, it will collapse this. That means you will see the name only, and here you'll see the description, right? So you can actually play with individual scenarios as well with the expand and collapse button. Also, you might notice there is a button like a trash can, which means the delete. The same thing, if you hit that button, it will allow you to delete that scenarios. Obviously, Synchro will warn you first that if you really want to delete it or not, you just need to press yes or no, whatever you prefer. Okay. Now you might notice that delete button is not here. Okay. And you also might notice there is two different button in AM peak, off peak, right? And also PM peak is similar to off peak. So what is that? You know, in Synchro, like you have a lot of data entry window, you can see the results in the grids. So those will actually come from a single scenario, right? Like you cannot do it multiple scenarios. You can work with multiple scenario, but when you show in UI, you don't want to make it clumsy enough so that like you'll actually lost with so many data. So that's why what we did, like we actually we allow you to active one scenario. So whatever the data you will see in Synchro, that comes from that particular scenarios, okay? Whatever the data you see, or maybe whatever the operation you want to do, it could be a merge, it could be optimization, everything will allow to the active scenarios, okay? So you can work with one scenario at a time. To active a scenario, you might notice that there is a button called activate. So that means when you click the activate button, it will change it to active. Meaning, if you see this window, it means that AM peak is active, off peak and PM peak is not active. Whatever data you will see in Synchro UI, it comes from AM peak. And you might also notice that there is no delete button. We purposely did that so you don't accidentally delete the active scenario, okay? So it's active, that means you are working on that. So we just want you to actually kind of restrain to delete the active scenario. So what you just need to do is although it's active, but if you really want to delete that, you just need to unactivate that and inactivate that and then delete that scenario, okay? So that's the purpose. That's why you don't have any delete button here. Another very important thing here, or very important option, I would say, is the save down or save as, okay? What does that mean? So the previous version of Synchro, it could be 9, it could be 10, they are not supported by multiple scenarios, right? So for example, you are working on a team, maybe you are an agency people or you are a consultancy people. The other half of your didn't actually got to upgrade it yet. Maybe they are planning, but that will take some time. So, but you still want to work with them together, right? So on that case, what can you do is you can actually save down a particular scenario. Okay, it could be PM, off peak, or AM peak, and save it down as a 10 and send back to the other person so that they can still work on that, although they didn't get upgraded to 11 yet. Or you can do with your file the same thing, okay? So it will allow you to have the save down option. Also for Synchro 11, for example, you are working on a team, there are some interns, and you don't want to share the huge file with the interns. Maybe you just want to split the work between them, and you have the 11, they have the 11, but you still want to share just particular scenarios. Maybe you want to give one off peak, another PM peak, so you can also save as 11 one particular scenarios. After they've done all the work, you can just merge in all the different scenarios and have it in one file. Okay, so that's the purpose of this save as or save down, however you want to say it. We called it as a save scenario button. Okay, but it works as a save as and save down, the same thing. Now you might also notice on the bottom there are two different buttons. One is the duplicate scenario, another is the copy data. So duplicate scenario is like you can duplicate scenario here, right? And I think that will be the most common use of scenario, most common use when you're using in scenario manager. So if you have an AM peak and you want to create a PM peak, you will duplicate it first. Why would you duplicate it? Because it will duplicate most all the data to another scenario. And as geometry is the same, so you don't need to draw geometry once again, right? You just duplicate it, change the data you want to change. It could be timing, it could be volume, and you are good to go. Okay. Also, it will help you to actually combine multiple scenarios. Let's say in version 10, where you were working and you have 4 different scenarios: AM peak, PM peak, existing, future. Okay. And now you have the same geometry. And first, what you're gonna do is you're gonna transfer, you're gonna open, for example, AM peak in 11, and you're gonna duplicate that AM peak 3 times, for example. And then you're gonna merge in PM peak in 1, existing in 1, and future in 1. And you are good to go. So you have the geometry, you just need to merge in the timing and the volume data. And you have all the 4 scenarios in a single 11 file. So I think that will be the feature you will most gonna use. And also the copy data from. So for example, if you actually need to copy data or transfer data from one scenario to another, you have that option here too. Okay, I'll actually go through and show you how can you use that functionality as well in Synchro a little later. I think I have just one slide before that. Okay, now like these are the data entry window in Synchro. We have like so many data, the data entry window, and which is warranted from the network settings, map settings, lane volume, timing, detector, simulation. Now, as I mentioned, that the geometry is actually shared across all the scenarios, right? Anything related to geometry. However, you can actually change the timing, you can change the volume and the related data. I know that you will remember that, but sometimes, like you need to work with so many data, right? Sometimes it's difficult to remember what was the geometry, what was the scenario, what was shared across all the scenarios, what is not, right? That's why we actually did a small like indication, or it is a very useful indication for you. So when you see, you will notice this in all the data entry window. When you open up a data entry window, you will see there is 2 different buttons. One is actually which is like the 2 overlapping boxes, and one is a single box. So when there is a 2 overlapping box, it means that these data are shared across all these scenarios. Okay, so if you change in one scenario, it will actually synchronize with the other scenario as well. Okay, so the change will take by the other scenarios. Single box, that means it is just for that particular scenarios. Okay, so if you change from 0.92 to 0.90, it will just apply to that particular scenario. It will not affect the other scenarios, right? Like that's the purpose. And for any changes with the geometry, when you have these overlapping boxes, you'll make sure that when you change it, always remember it's also getting changed by in the other scenarios as well. Okay, so that's a little bit kind of like information or indication for you, so that it can warn you whatever you are changing, that you are changing it consciously. Okay, now let's actually open up Synchro 11 and let me show you how it works. Okay, so this is the Synchro 11 file. And what I did is like pretty simple. I use one of my 10 file and I open up it in 11. And I know like if you have a lot of like 10 files, you will do the same. But like if you have 11, obviously you will start fresh, right? So now I have this, and now let me see. I have a 10 file. I just open up in 11. What is in my scenario manager? Okay, my scenario manager actually have all the information here from the scenario description. It defaulted me to scenario 1. So even if you start fresh with Synchro 11, it will actually default it to scenario 1, and then you just need to rename it. How can we rename it? in the scenario switcher, it also shows as a scenario 1. Here it is the same, right? Now from the description, I can actually see this is actually come from my PM peak data. So let me actually name it as a PM peak. So if I just name it, it will change the PM peak data here, and it will change here as well. Okay. Now, as you can see the description here, you might also notice you see something similar, right? In Synchro 10, you had an option called scenario properties, where you actually put all the information, right? The description, the data, date and time, which is actually when the data was collected. And you have, if you have some alternative, if you have the timing plan ID, if you have some analyst name, right? It could be you, it could be your partner, or it could be your like agency or consultancy name, you can put it here. However, like it's completely up to you, okay? So now the interesting thing is now you have everything, and this is actually PM peak data, and you are all set. Now, for example, I have a PM peak data, and now I want to have the AM peak data, and which is very normal in when you are using scenario manager. It could be different name scenarios, but I'm just like talking it for example. So what I just need to do is I just first need to do duplicate, right? I need to duplicate the PM peak scenarios so that I'll have all the data in my other scenarios and I can play with the scenario data. So let me actually select the PM peak and come at the bottom, and it show me that duplicate PM peak. Now, yes, I want to duplicate the PM peak. I want to name it as a AM peak. Description for the demo purpose, I'm not putting anything. I'll not, maybe here I'll just put the AM peak, or maybe for description, let me actually just copy and paste it. Now the data, date and time, as I mentioned that I want to have the same date and time, just the AM peak. I'll actually go back, and I think it's what, 24. Okay, my AM peak, let's say it's 8 AM. So you have the calendar selection and the clock selection, the time selection. You can actually make it from here. You can change it AM peak, PM peak, and press OK. Hit duplicate. Now you have the AM peak data, right? So let's focus on one intersection and see what we can actually do, what we can change between scenarios. So let's focus on this intersection. So this is PM peak, and you can see some volumes here, like, and then now if I activate AM peak, you can see the same because it's just the duplicate, right? Now let's change something in AM peak and let's compare it with PM peak, like if we change it correctly, if it's really changing, if it's actually fulfilling the purpose of scenario manager, right? So let's first change some, what should I change? Okay, let's first change some volume. So let's target the northbound and southbound. And what I want to do is I want to just like kind of change these two, which is kind of like you can actually see the differences. To show you the difference is the purpose, nothing actually else. So maybe 1000, whatever. I change the volume for AM peak. Let's change some timing as well. Let's change the type of the left turn. Maybe I want to see the protected from permitted. Maybe I want to do a little optimization. I want to change something under phasing. Okay, recall mode, let's say for the 2 and 6, it was max in PM peak. I want to have min. I think that's it. And now let's go back to the scenario manager. Okay, so now I can see AM peak is active, and I just changed the volume to 700 and 1000. Now if I active the PM peak, the volume is different, right? And that's the purpose, like 1047 and 776. So the volume got changed, and it's just an example. You can change actually eventually all the volume here. Now I want to see the timing settings, but let's go back. Now I'm in PM peak. How do I know I'm in PM peak? Because I cannot see the scenario manager. You see here. So here you have the PM peak, and however, how many scenarios you will have, it will actually show the list here. Okay, so this is a scenario switcher, because especially when you are in the grid and you don't want to actually kind of like, personally, I wouldn't like to actually go every time to scenario manager after I actually put all the description, and I know like what description I need to do there, go there, and then I change the name. I would like to switch the scenarios between here so that I can see the differences in the grid, which will help me, right? Like from the volume, yes, it's okay. Like if you can go with the scenario manager from here, but maybe you want to see more data and you want to compare them. So I would really prefer to use that. So like if you also prefer, just use this. So now I am in PM peak and I know that northbound and southbound is 3 and 7. So another thing, like when you switch the scenarios, in background, Synchro automatically activate the scenario what you just switched. Okay, so now I am in PM peak. If I hit M peak, it activates the M peak scenarios. If I even open the scenario window, you will see that the M peak is active. Okay, so now go back to timing settings. In my M peak, this is permitted, right? What I just changed for northbound and southbound. Also, the cycle length is 100 here. The PM peak, the cycle length is 120. You remember, I also optimize it. That's why it changed the cycle length as well. Now, what did I change? Okay, I also changed the phasing settings, the recall mode. So 2 and 6 was actually the max. And if I go back to M peak, I change it to mean, right? So you can have all those little differences here. Why I can change it in per scenarios? Because it's a scenario data and you can see it here. So when you actually hover your mouse on that, you see there is a single button and it's actually called you, hey, this is a scenario specific property. That means if you change it in one scenario, it will not affect the other scenarios. Okay. Now I also mentioned that if you change something in the lane settings, not in exactly in the lane settings. I know like most of the lane settings data are shared across geometry, but purposely I actually talk about the overlapping boxes. So anything you change in the overlapping boxes, it will actually apply to all your scenarios. For example, let's see the eastbound. Okay, so now I'm in eastbound. I had 2 left turn lanes. If I change it to 1 left turn lane, it changed in my AM peak. If I switch to PM peak, it also changed in my PM peak because it's a shared data, right? So always remember, if you actually change the shared data, it will affect your other scenarios as well. Okay, so let me go back. Now I change it here. If I hit AM peak, it changed here as well. Okay, I think that's it. Now I also want to show you the copy data option. So to do that, let's actually create another scenario. So now I'll create the scenario from AMPeak. So I hit AMPeak. I want to create what midday. I want to do the same. Find that particular date. Not October, it was September 24th. My midday is 1 p.m. I'm not actually putting all the description, but yes, you are most welcome to put all the description, because it will actually help you to create the it will actually appear in your header and footer of your report, so which will help you to actually identify from which scenario those data came from. So it's a good one, but for the demonstration purpose, I'm just skipping those. To duplicate. Now, as I duplicate from MPeak, that means in my midday, I should have the exact data what I have in my MPeak. So if I activate midday, it's the same, right? Now let's do another thing. Because if I activate PMpeak has some different data because I changed that. And as midday is the duplicate of MPeak, let's do one thing. Let's actually transfer the volume data from PMpeak to midday. Okay, so that's the purpose. Like I just want to show you how can you transfer data in between the scenarios. So now as I want to copy the data or transfer the data from PMpeak to midday, I'm going to select from where I want to actually bring the data. So as I mentioned that I want to bring the data from PMPIC, so I select PMPIC. Now it's showing me that copy data from PMPIC is, yes, this is what I want. Now copy data to. As I mentioned that I want to transfer the data to midday or copy the data to midday, I'm going to select that. How can I select that? You see there is an option called copy data to, and there is a drop down. So how many scenarios you have available, it will actually open up here. So now, as I mentioned, I want to see midday, I will select that. If I want to do it for MPIC as well, I can select multiple scenarios. Okay, so I just want to show you that you can transfer data to multiple scenarios, but this time I'm actually doing just one, midday. And you have the options what you want to transfer. It could be timing, it could be volume, it could be network settings. But as I mentioned that I want to just like transfer the volume. So yes, I want to click that and I want to hit copy. So data copied successfully. Okay. So now if I activate midday, I should see the PMPIC volume instead of the MPIC volume, right? So that's the purpose of transferring. So if I activate it, see the data is exactly like PMPIC, different than MPIC, right? So that's the purpose of the data transfer. I think I already explained all the feature here. If you close the scenario manager window, you can just click that. Also, let me see. These changes also applies to SimTraffic. Okay, so you do all the things in Synchro and you actually click SimTraffic. You should see you should have the capability to run the multiple scenarios there, and you can also change the calibration parameter. This is one change. Also, we have a little extra feature in optimization so that you can have the different iteration file in the same folder under the same file, and also little extra option in merge options. So let me show you as well. I was working with this. Now I have the 3 scenarios here, MPIC, midday, and PMPIC. If I hit SimTraffic, yes, I want to save the changes. So now it open up SimTraffic for me, and you see the MPIC is active here. So when you first open the SimTraffic, it will actually default to the active scenario, and you can change it from here as well, like like Synchro. So if you hit midday, it will actually do all the seeding and recording for you, and then it will actually create you the midday data, and also the PMPIC, the same thing. It will actually seeding and recording for you for the first time. But if you actually go back and right now, as the recording is done, if you just change to MPIC, it will automatically actually start doing the simulation for you. The calibration parameter, you can have different calibration parameter in your different scenarios. Those data are scenario wise as well. Okay. This is about the SimTraffic. As I also mentioned about the, I think the optimization. So if you hit the optimize cycle length, you might notice there is an option called, previously there is an option like create files for each cycle length, because when you actually run the optimization and you are in Synchro, it will actually create a new timing plan for this one scenario, right? But in between, it also iterates through different, like if your minimum is 130 and maximum is 150, optimization will iterate, right? From 130 to 140 and then 150. Like I'm just talking about this example, right? And it will create 3 different scenarios and it will give you the optimized one, okay? So in previous version, what you could do is you could actually check these for different files and it will create a different files for 130, 140 and 150 under the Synchro directory or under the folder, sorry. In this case, if you do that, you can have it here, okay? If you want to see that. If you don't want to see that, you can just uncheck it, but I just want to show you, that's why I check it, and I'll do the optimization here. and just to show you how it creates actually different scenarios for you. You see, from the M peak, it actually creates AM130, AM140, and AM150. If you just wish to see and wish to see the results in the same file, you just don't want to actually open separate files just to see, you can use that functionality. If you don't want to use it, that's fine as well. I just want to show you that it has that option. Okay. Now I talked about the merge as well. So if you have transfer and if you merge file, maybe yes. And let me actually select a file which has multiple scenarios. So right now I am trying to merge a file which has multiple scenarios. If you have multiple scenarios, you will see the option that the file you are trying to merge in has different scenarios. Do you want to merge in or not, right? And then which scenario you want to merge in? Obviously, you cannot merge all the scenarios. You have the purpose, right? And if you do that, okay, so if you have option, you just need to select the one scenario you want to merge in. If you don't want to, if you have just single scenarios, it will do a nothing. Okay, but if you have multiple scenarios, you have the option to choose the scenarios and which you want for sure, right? So now I have an off peak, and kind of what I'm doing, I'm actually kind of merging this to my AM peak. And yes, I want to do the volume, the timing. I want to update the scenario information as well. If I press OK. So now my AM peak should turn into off peak and also have the other information. But if you just uncheck the scenario information, it will not transfer. So that's the option we actually kind of have extra based on the scenario manager. And I think that's it I wanted to talk for today. And now it's a question and answer time. Let me see what I have. Okay. I have the first question from Shabib, if I'm pronouncing it right. Then thanks for the webinar. How to tell Synchro 11 that the volume data keyed in are 5 years old and need to be brought to the current year using a growth 2% per year. So it depends how you wanna, so in different scenarios like Synchro 11, like you can have like one scenario, which is the uh, existing, and another scenario which is the from 5 years old you mentioned, right, which is 5 years old. So in Synchro you have the, let me open up Synchro for a sec. Oh, I don't want to use that, I want to use the other file. Okay, so under the volume settings, where is the volume settings? Under the volume settings there is an option called growth factor. So you could either use that, and that's kind of a like simple multiplication. So you just, it will actually just multiply that growth factor to your adjusted volume. You can do it like that, or I would also suggest you to do it through the traffic impact analysis. Like you can actually put that extra growth factor to that, and you can have a separate scenarios. So in one scenario you can have existing one, in another scenario you can have the volume with that 2% growth factor. Okay, I hope that answer your questions. Okay, the next one is from Hussain. Can you compare two operational scenarios, one with phase 4+8 versus another one with split phase 3+4? Yes, sure, you can do that. So you can actually compare one with 4+8, another with 3+4. Yes, you can do that. We have that option in per scenario basis. Okay. Okay, let's see if I have any other questions.
We still have a few more minutes left for today, so if you have questions, be sure to type those in the Q&A. We'll give you a few more minutes to do so.
Okay, I can't see any questions. I think I explained everything on the webinar then. Okay, no, like I'm just kidding. Please type in your questions if you have any. I'm here for a few minutes.
We will send out a recording of today's webinar along with some helpful resources. So, Sharman, I think we may be done for today. Thank you everyone for joining us, and thank you, Sharman.
Yes, thank you everyone for your time and attention. Have a nice rest of the day. Bye-bye.